The story was called The Dog, and it went like this. Once there was a little boy who had a dog that he loved very much. One night, when he was about to go to bed, he saw his dog slip out of the front door and into the darkness. The next morning, he asked his mother where his dog was. She said that his dog had wandered off into the woods and was probably dead or hurt. That night, he went out into the woods to look for his dog. The forest was dark and creepy, but he was sure he could find his dog if he looked hard enough. He searched for hours and hours, but he never found a trace of his dog. That night, his dog returned home, just as before. The next morning, his mother told him that the dog had died from being out so late. He cried for days. Now the little boy was very sad because he would not have any more fun playing with his dog, and he missed her terribly. And so he decided that, in order to get over his sadness, he would get a new dog. But then he thought, how could he be sure that the new dog wasn't going to do the same thing as his old one? And so, because he was afraid, he decided not to get any new dog. He decided not to have any fun for the rest of his life. After that, he grew old and died. The story was written in a tiny, cramped hand. When I had read it, I knew that I had to bring it to my mother. But I was afraid that she wouldn't understand it, so I took it with me to school. When I got home, I waited for my mother to come and see me after dinner, hoping that she would ask me about my day at school so that I could tell her what I had been doing. I didn't want to give her the story yet, though. I was still afraid that she wouldn't understand it, so I waited until she was asleep. My father had told me that once when my mother had been in a deep sleep, he had gone to her room to kiss her on the cheek, as he used to do, and she had woken up and smiled at him. And when he had gone back into my parents' bedroom, he had told her what she had looked like, so that she could remember it later. I didn't know if that was true, but I hoped that it was, because that would make it easier for my mother to understand the story when she read it. So I waited until she fell asleep that night, and then, in the dark, I crept into her bedroom. She was snoring gently, as she always did, and as I tiptoed towards her, she stirred slightly in her sleep. I put the story into a pocket of her nightgown, and then I put her hand on it and closed my eyes. Then I made myself go away, so that she would wake up in her own time. It was 2 weeks later when I found the story again. It had been pushed to the back of a drawer, under a pile of old socks. When I picked it up, I realized that I didn't want to give it to her now. So I took it to my father's study and left it there, with his typewriter and his desk, and then I went back to my room to sleep. I waited until I had gone back to school. Then I wrote a note to my mother. Found this story under your pillow tonight. Don't worry, it doesn't matter. I took it to school and put it into a bag full of homework and exercise books. Then I went home and took a long, hot bath. In the middle of the bath, I thought about the story I had written. There were many things in the story that were true. It had taken place in my town, and many of the events that happened were ones that my mother had told me about herself. It was about me, in a way, and it was about her too. But I couldn't bring myself to think about that part of it yet. It was all true, but it wasn't real. There was something missing from it. It felt like a shadow over the story, or lie underneath it.